There's an ancient Sufi story about Moses and the people of Israel. One day, the people told Moses, "We'd like to invite Yahweh for dinner." And Moses replied, Yahweh is beyond eating, okay? But later on, Yahweh spoke to Moses. "Why didn't you tell me I've been invited to dinner? I'll be there Friday evening, okay?" The people began making elaborate preparations, elaborate table setting, and the finest foods. They wanted everything to be perfect for the arrival of Yahweh. While they were working, a hungry beggar appeared and pleaded, "Please help me." She said, "I'm really starving." But instead of giving her food, the people told her, "We're just too busy preparing for the coming of Yahweh. You should help us with the preparations, okay?" Well, Friday came. The meal was ready. The people waited and waited and waited, but Yahweh never appeared. Moses complained to Yahweh, why did you not come as you promised?" Yahweh replied, "I did come. I came hungry and asked for something to eat. But instead of feeding me, you asked me to help with the preparations." Moses answered, "But Yahweh, you just look like an ordinary human being." And Yahweh replied, "This is your challenge, to recognize me beneath my disguises." Mother Teresa said, "Love Jesus under the appearance of bread and serve him in the distressing disguise of the poorest of the poor." Perhaps that is also the challenge presented to us in the gospel today, the readings, to recognize God and the unexpected disguises that happen in our lives. In the first reading, Elijah expects to encounter God in the dramatic, the powerful. So he's out of his cave waiting for this arrival of Yahweh, and a mighty wind tears through the mountains, but God's not in the wind. Then comes fire, but God is not in the fire either. And then comes an earthquake, and God was not in the earthquake. Finally, there's a tiny, tiny whispering sound, and Elijah recognizes the presence of God. My friends, we often look for God where we expect God to be, in the dramatic, the miraculous, the obvious, the sacred places, the powerful. Yet God often comes in a quiet whisper, a whisper we can hear only when we become quiet. God refuses to be controlled. God cannot be forced to appear when we expect. God can only be received and loved. In the gospel, Jesus has gone away to pray alone. And in the stillness of the night, Jesus entered into that quiet communion. God whispering to Jesus, Jesus whispering to God. Meanwhile, the disciples are in a boat being tossed in the sea. A violent wind has come up. They're not merely frightened, they're terrified. And it is precisely there, in the middle of the storm, that Jesus comes to them, walking upon the water. We know this story. What an extraordinary image. Jesus comes to them from what appears to be an impossibility. This wasn't expected. Perhaps this is another way the gospel speaks to us. Jesus meets us in our own impossible situations. In those moments when we believe there is just no way forward, no way, Jesus comes. In these moments when fear overwhelms us, when we surrender to it, Jesus comes. In those moments when the waves seem stronger than our faith, Jesus comes. Peter, with his typical generous and impulsive heart, says, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. Jesus simply responds, come. Come. Peter steps out of the boat onto the water. For a moment, he's doing the impossible. He's walking on the water. But then his attention shifts. He stops focusing on the presence of Jesus and begins focusing on the wind and the waves and the fear. He becomes afraid. He gives in to fear. He begins to sink. And he cries out, Lord, save me. Immediately, in one of the most touching scenes of the Gospels, Jesus reaches out to Peter and touches his hand and lifts him up out of the water. Again today, Jesus reaches down, takes all of us by the hand, and says, do not be afraid. Perhaps today's readings are teaching us how to recognize God beneath God's disguises in our own lives. God may be disguised as a hungry stranger, someone on the street begging. Could be disguised as a quiet whisper in our heart. Could be within the storm of our lives. God may even be disguised within something that seems utterly impossible to overcome. Perhaps the storm could be an immigration issue, so critical for many of our sisters and brothers today. Perhaps it's a health concern, tension within a family, suffering of someone we love, someone is dying. Perhaps we feel that we can just in no way get beyond what's happening. Yet within every storm, we hear the same message. The most quoted 4 words in the scriptures. Do not be afraid. Which means do not give in to fear. Do not surrender to it. Jesus does not always remove the wind, doesn't always calm the waves, but Jesus enters the storm with us. Jesus reaches down, takes us by the hand, lifts us up, embraces us, and says those words we want to hear over and over again. I am with you. Do not give in to fear. My friends, this is what we need to hear over and over. Every heartbeat, every swallow, every eye blink, the same thing. Again and again, every day. And when we truly hear it, when we truly listen, when we recognize Jesus beneath all those disguises, my friends, we are finally free.